Welcome to Moonlit Magic. Party on, Allyse.
Party on, Nikki.
Excellent.
Excellent. You Nobody knows who we are, and that's fine. Nobody will ever get it. Welcome you guys to Moonlit Magic Live. We're here tonight celebrating spooky season, and we're gonna kind of come into this a little bit slower because it takes a minute for anybody to even realize that we're here, to remember what we're doing. Like, we're the only one, honest to God, we're the only ones who are like prepped for this. Probably everyone else might see a notification or they might see it pop up on their phone, I think. But I'm the only one who probably blocked out her whole weekend for this. So I don't think anybody else is doing that. But this is our spooky season celebration. And we're here to share a few of our favorite campfire stories. And I'm here with my friends. We're wondering where you're watching from. And so as we introduce ourselves, let us know that you're here live. And so we can give you a shout out. And later on, whether you're listening live or on the replay, vote for your favorite story of the night. So you recognize me. I'm the one who's always here. You always hear my voice and I'm always talking. Always. You see my hands moving. Those are my hands and my mouth that you always hear. You recognize Nikki, my partner and cohort. Go ahead. What do you do?
You probably recognize me in the group. I'm the author of the Moonlit Living Moon Journal and the soon-to-be launched Moonlit Living subscription box. I own 2K's Eclectic Oasis, which is where kind of all that started. And I'm always here on the lives. So, yeah. While you're letting us know where you're watching from in the comments, could you also say hello to Sierra? She's part of the Moonlit Magic team, and you may recognize her from the Facebook group. She's a moderator in there, and she also moderates the comments on our YouTube lives. This is her first time going live with us, though. So if you could say hello to her, and if you're not in the group, get in there.
And that's her real hair.
Yes, of course.
Hello, my darlings. You can also call me Cruella.
Introduce yourself. I don't want to
Well, I'm Sierra. I've been friends with Allyse for probably 5 years now. I just had a baby in February, so I don't do much other than be a mom.
Well, that's what we're here doing, because I feel like that's kind of the situation we're all in, especially even just like with what's going on in the world. We're isolated and want to hang out with our friends. And I need this kind of stuff. It's fun for me. I don't know. It's like a lot of pressure, but it's fun too.
Yeah.
So, it's in the costume day.
Yeah, and it's good. And who else am I going to show my costume off to? Who else cares? So tonight we're telling stories, and we all kept these stories kind of private and secret from one another. So we didn't reveal any of the details so we could react genuinely. So we each chose a story of totally different origins that we felt connected to somehow. Oh, and we forgot to talk about that because we were going to mention that. But anyway, grab a snack and relax, grab a drink, and we're going to share some of our favorite spooky stories. I think we all had a different motivation, I guess, for what we wanted to share or what we felt drawn to share even. Mine personally, I was really struggled to pick something until I kind of sat with the time of year and the season and decided that I wanted to honor this misunderstanding of not just women, the women who paved the way for us to be here, to be weird and outspoken and loud, but a lot of them were being weird. They were labeled and they were outcast, and some even labeled as witches and didn't make it. You don't make it past an accusation like that. So for me, I felt connected to that. And so I'm going to share something in that realm. What are you guys sharing?
I'll go. So, again, if you are in the Moonlit Magic group, you might see that on Mondays I do a Music Monday. And I used to work booking local bands and musicians. It was a lot of fun. I met some really creative and talented people in that time. And I've just always really enjoyed indie work of all kinds, whether it's art, music, writing. So I went with an author, a local author that I met during that time, and we've stayed in contact. So I'll be reading a story that a personal friend of mine wrote, and he is a horror author.
Awesome. And Sierra's
that
got
was
like you have a unique origin. You were like the first one who just knew what you were going to tell.
Yeah, it was just an automatic thing because this campfire story, but it was like in a tent. It was just something that stuck with me. My stepdad told it while we were camping. And even as an adult, like I still think about it just randomly. It won't even be like camping or like during a spooky season. It's just like a random memory that always comes up because it just creeped me and my brother out so much.
I'm really excited because I don't really know where any of this is going. I don't know about your stories at all. You guys might know a little bit about mine because mine's more familiar, but it's a different spin on it. Unfortunately, Mercury retrograde stole one of our storytellers today, but hopefully she'll be joining us in the future. And before we get going, anytime that you hop in, anything that we talk about, descriptions and links are going to be in the in the description or the live stream comments or the comment section. If it's missing and you can't find it, just let us know. So is anybody as excited as I am to do this? Because I'm just excited to be here with you guys. Like we could just be hanging out really like Facebook doing this. But I think it's a really cool, just something to reshare and to have that memory, like even to share with our kids. My kids are really impressed by this.
Yeah.
And my friends' kids are like, I don't know how impressed like people our age are. My kids are like, so my friend saw saw someone who looked like you on YouTube.
Well, and then also people can comment their favorite scary stories so we can read even more throughout the season.
That's really smart too, because something I was thinking about was getting even doing one that is more child friendly, because we did get some stories submitted that were children stories, but I wanted, because I didn't really know what you guys were going to do, so I didn't want to like be like, oh, let's lump a children's story in and then like invite kids to watch and then like ruin their lives. Like, so I was like, let's maybe do that at a different time, like be more specific and be more like storytelling with authors and stuff like that, where we can have different frames for coming together and doing stuff like this. Just a second. I just wanted to check something. Okay, perfect. All right. So I know you guys are pumped and I'm pumped too. The first one is going to be Nikki's story.
Okay.
Let me make sure. Oh, I forgot to put this up here before when we're talking about Sierra. Sorry, guys. See, I'm already like falling behind. We know how this gets. It just gets jumbled up and behind. Go join the group if you're not part of the group already. Sierra is our, our
moderator.
She started off in there and then, started hanging out here, and look at moving on up every live stream.
Can't wait.
You too can become part of the Moonlit Magic team and be here on these live streams. But that's true. Like come and join the group, connect with us, because we do different stuff every month and we want different voices, as we come up with different concepts. We want new voices and new concepts and ideas, and we can't do this all ourselves. Look at what we just talking to an echo chamber. We just talk to each other so much. We need to hear from you. Insert some, like, bring us back down to earth, probably is what we need. A bunch of like Aquarius energy in here.
A little too much.
All right, so Nikki, here is your story.
All right. So, like I said, I'm going to read a story from a local author. You can find links to see more of his work and some other local to Chicago horror authors. If you're interested in that, you'll find that in the description. The story is called The House at the End of Dead Pond Road. It's by my friend John Myers. Okay. The amber and gray collage of smoke and flames crept up through the cracks in the floorboards, out the windows, and through the roof of the large white farm-style home, and into the black sky, leaving nothing but soon-to-be ashes and a silhouette of a demon's face. Sirens blared in the distance. The flames shine for miles on a night like this, so clear and untouched. The events that happened inside the McAllister household on the eve of Tuesday, March 13th, 1876, are tales not forgotten. Erica Jones moved to Chagrin Falls after the death of her grandmother, discovered dead in her house after it caught fire at age 88. Erica could see her resemblance burned into the crippled flesh of her grandmother. House fires plagued Erica. She was barely making ends meet, so she got a job working at the dusty convenience store a few blocks south of the ruined home. The eerie seaside town of Chagrin Falls was quiet, dead quiet. It always was. Ravens flew about from treetop to treetop, leading predators to prey, longing to upon the remains. The pond channeled in from the ocean via rivers and streams. Gray fog rolled in silently around dusk and left late dawn, day in and day out, forever. Erica spotted the new place a couple of hours after she got off the Greyhound. She camped out in front to see if anyone lived there. Nobody came or left the place for a few days. She could tell by the unkempt lawn that the place was vacant. She just needed to be sure before she went inside. Never again. She picked the lock and went inside. Now I could get used to this. She loved the fireplace. To her left, the dining room. On her right, the kitchen. The place looked perfect. This is it. She liked this one much better than the last place she squatted. It was larger and somewhat secluded and quiet. She liked the quiet. For a squatter, Erica was fussy. She retained drive and motivation for life and its quirks. If Erica was squatting in a house, it must be nice, with electricity and furniture. She knew what the consequences were if caught, so why not go big? She sat in the living room, scribbling into her diary, stuff about how she missed Bradley, her boyfriend. He cheated on her with her best friend, causing Erica to catch the first bus out of town without an official breakup. She wanted to kill him. She loved him more than many thought possible. She didn't understand how he could do that to her. He ripped her heart out of her chest and tossed it into the garbage, all because of a fire. That's what Erica did. She ran from her problems, repressing them deep into the recesses of her mind. She had demons inside. Secrets. Dark secrets. Secrets kept in her heart and in her diary only. The weight of the world was just too much for Erica. Erica relocated from town to town looking for a place where she might escape her fears. Thus far, Chagrin Falls seemed to be perfect. A couple of weeks went by and Erica started noticing some peculiar activity in the house. It made her worry. Whose house was this? The house appeared to be untouched for years. It should sell for a reasonable price on the market. Why would they leave? Why would anyone want to leave? The place was just as beautiful on the inside as it was on the outside. Pale white on the exterior paired with flat black shutters, a dark rose red front door, the old tire swing on the east side underneath a speckled white oak tree. The place looked immaculate. Maybe whoever occupied the household had died, like her grandmother. Erica couldn't place a finger on it. She shook her head. Not again. The next day at work, she asked a couple of her coworkers about the place. She told them that she was a relative of the people that used to live there, the McAllister family. This was a lie. The name was on the mailbox. However, to her and the others at work, the name didn't mean anything except for Bartley, the old man working at the cash register. The house you're referring to is the house of the devil, he said, without further comment. Erica said nothing. Bartley was outlandish and old, a rather haggard man. He spoke funny and slurred his speech, an alleged raging alcoholic. The worst in town, said Sam, the rather homely kid that stocked the shelves. In a quiet town like Cherrigan Falls, there wasn't really much else to do, so it was common to sit back and drink away the pain. Whiskey was good for that. However, one thing for certain, if somebody knew something about somebody, it was the older people in town, and Old Man Bartley was just that, old as dirt. Erica decided she would thoroughly investigate this place. She'd been crashing there and didn't really know much about it. This fact sunk deep like a parasite slowly eating away at her innards. And the more she considered it, the more she realized it should have been done before even moving in. At home after work, she turned on the stove, boiled a pan of water before dumping in the can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup. The light in the kitchen flickered. She muttered, looking around. What was that? She walked outside to check the fuel in the generator that powered the house. When she turned the corner of the house, the front door slammed. When she got to the generator, it was off. Maybe it's out of fuel. When she got back to the front door, she found it locked. The generator rattled and started back up. She tugged at the door, twisted the knob fast and hard, rattling it. It wouldn't open. The door flung open and hit her in the face. Her nose bled. She placed her hand under it and then went inside to clean up. That night, she tossed and turned in her bed. The nightmares were getting worse. This time, she found herself walking through the woods by herself. It was cold and dark. She knew by how she shivered. She felt anxious, as if she knew something was just ahead, keeping her walking closer to the light. When she got there, she saw nothing at first, but then something appeared out of the light and then moved into the shadows surrounding her. She felt a level of fear she never thought possible, not even like when she ran away from home when she was 13. She tried to wake up, but couldn't. The man spoke as he placed his decrepit hand on her shoulder and squeezed. He shook her and muttered his name. Victor. She turned to run, but found her efforts slowed by dream anxiety. Everything was slow motion, and the voice chanted, Victor. Erica woke up terrified. Her blanket and sheets were soaked with sweat. She laid awake counting sheep in her head, trying to keep her eyes from closing. She didn't think she could make it through another dream, trembling at the thought of falling back asleep and going back to that God-forsaken place. Her eyes were getting heavier. The blinking of her eyelids slowed. I'm exhausted. It's too heavy. No, must stay awake. Can't fall asleep. I have to fight it. Then Erica slept. A barrage of shapes and patterns glowed in a circle beneath her feet. Erica observed the circle, accompanied by a triangle and a few obscure lines that sat off-kilter outside of the circle, but connected back to the triangle. It was a satanic symbol of some sort, she knew with certainty. A hand reached out of the pentagram, followed by a head and shoulders. A figure was emerging out of the ground. Erica jumped back and away, terrified. She put her hands over her ears and tried to force her eyes shut. Ignore it. Maybe it'll go away. She didn't want to see whatever it was that was coming out of the floor. Nevertheless, she did see the figure was old, even ancient. She padded out the room into a long, dark hallway, sobbing. Erica was terrified and didn't know where she was or how she had gotten there. The figure stood at the top of the symbol, a demon. He whispered something that radiated into the hallway, but Erica couldn't make out what it was. At the end of the long hallway, she saw a door, a metal door with an airtight lock. Even if without a lock, it was still too heavy for Erica to handle. She turned around and looked for an escape. Trapped in the hallway like a farm animal, there was nothing for her to do. The demon stood at the other end and stared back at her. Erica stopped in her tracks, wanting to awake. The demon ran down the hallway and stopped right in front of her, leaned in, and screamed obscenities at her. She moaned in terror. The hair on her neck rose. The demon screamed at her. Victor! At work the next day, Erica focused on the demon's name. What did it mean? Who was this Victor? After work, she hitched a ride with Sam to the library. Sam was another coworker and wanted to take Erica to bed. Something is up with that house, she said. Like what? Sam said. He turned the dial down on the radio to better hear her. He was concerned. The woman emoted fear. I don't know, something dark, she said. I can feel it. Last night was horrible and I could barely sleep, and the dreams are getting worse. What do you need at the library? Research, Erica said. I'm going to see if I can find anything unusual about that house. Sam flirted around the curve down the road just outside of town. They were approximately 5 miles out from the Cherrigan Falls Public Library. The tall, leafless winter trees blurred as she stared out the window. Did you see that? She said. Sam shook his head no. Erica thought she saw something through the blur standing on the side of the road. It looked like the demon from her dream. At the library, she still couldn't get the name Victor out of her head. She replayed the terrifying details from her dream repeatedly. Erica quickly scrolled through the newspaper archive. The two of them searched for clues about the house, skimming through headline after headline. Cherrigan Falls, town scandal, Cherrigan Falls bank robbery, town board votes yes on new school building, faculty says no. There, Erica said, noticing a headline that finally caught her eye. Murder at Blood Pond. She skimmed the article. Look, she said to Sam, October 16th, 1954. That's like 20 years ago, Sam said, leaning over her shoulder. The street was shortly after renamed Blood Pond Road after authorities received a distress call about a series of screams coming from the pond. Officials documented the event as the most brutal tragedy that they'd ever encountered. Damn, Sam said. What else does it say? Erica continued. Jan McAllister, age 12, was walking next to the pond when her mom heard the screams from inside the house. Not too far away, Mr. and Mrs. McAllister, accompanied with their other child, Billy, ran to the pond to find their daughter and sister hovering above the blood pond. That's unbelievable, Sam said. I know. It says here they found her at a slight angle, levitating with her limbs arched, apparently unaware of what was happening, before being plunged down into the water like a heavy rock, only to be shot back up in the air again, where she ascended even higher than before. When she came crashing back down in the water, Mr. McAllister dove into her rescue and told officials that she was speaking a different language in a voice that was not her own. Also, she had grown a pair of wings. What? Sam said, just as shocked as Erica, whose jaw hung slack after reading with the last statement. Wings? Erica scrolled through a little more before noticing yet another headline. McAllister residence up in flames. Family dies in house fire. Dated November 3rd, 1954. That was 2 weeks later, said Sam, still skeptical of Erica and her mad ranting about the events taking place in the house. Erica knew she sounded crazy. However, she wasn't lying. Something serious was going on in that house, something dark and evil. The whole time, Erica had a vast sensation of discomfort. Something was wrong. She couldn't focus as well as usual. Something burrowed deep within her. Something dark, something evil, something dangerous. I need to get back to the house, she said. All right, I can take you. Erica and Sam hopped back in the car. They dashed down the winding road past the convenience store and toward the pond. Erica's mind revolved around madness. Her anxiety was excruciating. She kept seeing things in the blurs outside the window. She couldn't get the name out of her head, the tragic event that transpired, and Victor, and the headlines from the newspaper. Erica spoke in sentence fragments. That's it, she said, pointing out Blood Pond. That's the pond where Jan McAllister was seen hovering above with wings. Sam shook his head in confusion. He said, but why? I don't know. That's what we need to figure out. That's when they saw it, the fire, just past the pond at the end of the street. It was coming from the house. The house at the end of Blood Pond Road was ablaze, flames reaching towards a black Cadillac parked in front. The McAllister residence was on fire. No, not its first fire, but a fire that had burned before. Something isn't right, Erica said. Her stomach turned like a worm. This is what cancer feels like. The articles in the newspaper. What do you want to do? Sam said. Erica paused for a second and thought about it. She wanted to run, like she always did. Nevertheless, something inside her yearned to answer the secrets. Let's go, she said. Erica thought it was a bad idea, but she had to. Something inside of her was pulling like a moth to flames. The McAllisters were an average, happy, functional family, except they had demons in their closet, like wasps storing nourishment inside their nest. The flames roared high above the house as Erica and Sam pulled into the driveway. The front door was wide open. You ready for this? Sam said. He took Erica's hand in his. Erica said nothing, but accepted his hand and followed just behind him. They entered the door and stood in awe, pausing, soaking it all in. What is going on? Jan McAllister, age 12, stood at the edge of the wooden dinner table, her hands extended out like claws of a ravenous bird, her back slightly arched, her neck tilted to the side at a 90-degree angle. The fire behind her screeched, adding depth to the agony. Although she wasn't the one creating it, the flame's howl shrieked from an entity inside of her. Her face, bruised, her head bled as if repeatedly smashed against by the house itself. The lights flickered, the chandelier rattled, and the flames grew fiercer. Onste dale tunga o porta e mio che pengrua toe, she said, not with her own voice or cognized, and with the innocence of a voice of a child. No, much darker and ancient. That's the voice. Erica looked over at Sam, mortified, frozen in place. Mr. and Mrs. McAllister, having returned to their home to renew their search for their daughter, stared at Erica, stared through Erica, hoping for a sight of their daughter dancing with Erica's life force. A moment passes. Jan McAllister hovered high above the dinner table. She was levitating upright in midair. Smoke discharged from her mouth and nostrils. The house was ice cold, the kind of cold that repels warmth, despite the fire burning around them. A few more seconds went by and Jan fell to the ground. She looked like an abused rag doll. The demon controlled her. She's its puppet. Jan McAllister was indeed possessed. She moved about in a slow, articulated dance. Mrs. McAllister screamed. Little brother Billy McAllister was bawling, holding his hands over his face like a shield. The demon spoke. Voi I vostra pete vita per no hai capito. Little Jan's family was under the power of the demon, sitting motionless, shattering cries erupting from deep inside them. Mr. McAllister was the only one appearing to hold it together, but he looked as if at any moment he might break down and succumb to the demon. Who are you? Mr. McAllister said, knowing that this was not his daughter. He feared the darkness, but not his daughter. It's me, Daddy, said the demon with Jan's sweet voice. It's me, he gasped. Jan, you okay, baby girl? Daddy, help me, Daddy, the demon said. Terror lingered in the room like burnt oil. McAllister knew his daughter's voice, but a moment ago there was no sign of her. The voice inside what appeared to be his daughter was gone. The evil continued to resonate through the house. Who are you? I ask again, Mr. McAllister said. Daddy, it's me. Help me, Daddy, Jan replied. Her voice, his daughter's eyes. His daughter returned, or at least a part of her. Honey, are you okay? Mr. McAllister wormed in his chair, trying to break loose from the spirit vines holding him. Daddy, help me, Daddy, Jan's voice said one more time. Her eyes rolled back into her head. Mr. McAllister saw his daughter's eyes go dark again. Who are you? He said again. There was a moment of silence. The cabinets in the kitchen slammed open and shut with the force of a tropical hurricane. The only water truly inside the house came from the teardrops. A solid sense of fear puddled the room. I thought they were all dead, Sam said, looking over at Erica, who remained motionless. Me too, she said. Mr. McAllister sat back in his seat and braced himself for imminent doom. Whatever was inside his daughter wasn't coming out. Moreover, it was angry. He was giving up. It pained him deeply to feel this way, just giving up. But he was at a loss for not only words, he didn't know what else he could do for her. Whatever was inside of her was obviously much stronger. Victor Van Veren, the voice said. Jan's head tilted to the side as the demon spoke from within her. Her body was limp and swayed from side to side. Mrs. McAllister squealed as she tried to rattle from the dark vines wrapped around her arms and legs. Amidst her struggle, the chair fell over and her face smashed against the hard floor. She couldn't wiggle herself free and remained bound to the chair. Billy shouted, Mom! Demon, she said before vomiting a swarm of flies. Mr. McAllister slumped in his chair. He looked over at his wife and son, terrified to the sheer horror between them reached ungodly levels. It was his job to help them, and he wanted to, but he couldn't. The only thing he had left to offer was passivity, to watch in unsufferable agony. Demon, the voice said again, taunting them. Jan threw a knife off the table at Billy. It stuck in his shoulder blade and dangled. Erica remained silent, eyeing the front door. She and Sam appeared unnoticed to the McAllisters and to the demon inside of Jan. In shock, Billy brought his hand up to stop the wound from bleeding, watching as the blood soaked his white t-shirt. Just kill us already, Mrs. McAllister muttered through her tears. Do it, she said. Just do it. For a second, Mrs. McAllister stopped crying. She knew she lacked any power. She felt like she was drowning, suffering on the floor of her own home, drenched in vomit, overcome by emotion and dread. Jan's body stood still and helpless. Jan's mouth opened up and spit bits of placenta into the table before standing back up and unfolding a pair of crinkled and ancient wings. Blood dripped from where they were connected to the skin on her back. The wings looked stitched on. The blood puddled up on the floor below. Villa de arte morte de demono questeno sponde di, she said as the demon unleashed a swarm of black wasps from her mouth. The dark cloud buzzed, swarmed around the room, then buried Mrs. McAllister under a black mask. She screamed for her life. The wasps covered every inch of her face. She could feel their prickly feet on her eyelids when she blinked. She screamed again when the wasps made their way down her throat, when they moved up her blue dress and penetrated her flesh. Billy McAllister watched his mother's reaction when he was attacked by the flies that she had vomited. Her arms flailed about as he tried to fight them off. Mouth still open, the demon used Jan's fragile right hand and jammed it into her own mouth, fist deep, cramming it down into her throat, past her esophagus and down into the cavity of her stomach, as far as it could reach. She gurgled a mouthful of her own blood and cried as her arm continued to stretch down inside, pulling out a lock of aged black hair. She choked as she pulled harder. It was Victor in the flesh. His haggard bones stuck to the rotting flesh pulled out through the inside of her mouth. Erica gagged. The stench was unbearable, like unattended corpses in a trench. His flesh scaled the depths of hell. Victor stood next to Jan. Jan was gagging, blood dripping from her mouth. She flapped her wings. She groaned through tears. Cold tears dripped down her face and mixed with the blood smeared upon her mouth. Her nose splashed droplets of blood onto the floor as she exhaled, trying to breathe. The demon backhanded her, sending Mr. McAllister into a fit of rage, but he was still bound to the wooden chair by the dark vines. I'm going to kill you, you son of a bitch, he said. The lights flickered, the chandelier rattled, the flies vanished, the demon circled the room. He took slow steps around each of them, taunting. Gire ese un perilele de feno, he said. Jen lay on the floor. She pressed her hand softly against the side of her cheek and cried, Daddy, help me. By the time the fire department and cops arrived at the house at the end of Blood Pond Road, the house was silent and unscathed. Questions remained unanswered as to what really happened inside the old white farm-style house. Upon investigation by local law enforcement, there was nobody inside. There was no fire, no sign of any of the McAllisters. There wasn't a demon or soul to be found. They looked at Sam and Erica as if they were mad. It was just a cold, dark house left unattended and unoccupied for years. For Sam and Erica, the stench lingered. They could smell it as much as they could feel it. Only a rotted corpse could smell that bad. The floorboards remained damp and withered, the wooden dinner table still set for a family of 4 with the chairs gently pushed in. The name of the previous residence still etched on the mailbox, faded black, that read, the McAllisters. Neither of them would ever forget what happened inside the house. Erica and Sam never saw one another again. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. No big deal. It wasn't intense or anything.
Erica and Sam were like, look at you.
Yeah, that was okay. So the author did a great job being
The gore, like
Yeah.
or like whatever, the detail of like some of that. I'm like,
Isn't that crazy? And one of the things is that was one of his first stories published. So could you imagine like what kind of things he's writing now?
oh yeah, because you did, yeah. So I'm sure it just gets, think of the first thing that you do when you start, creating, and it's like embarrassing later. So, because you just build so many skills.
Right.
That was good. That was freaking whoa.
Yeah, that was there was a lot of things in it that are like my phobias. Like I hate like insects crawling all over me. So like when you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I don't even want to repeat it because it just like makes my skin sick. And I'll probably have nightmares tonight. So thanks.
No problem. You're welcome.
Well, yeah, like it's more like that the esophagus part, like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so,
I don't want to repeat that. It's gonna make me nauseous.
oh, that's so like,
Yeah, but
wow.
and that's the thing. Like you got to look into whether it's authors or musicians or whatever. I love seeing things that like people. It's not mainstream. You're not going to see that anywhere else.
No, sorry, you froze for a second.
Oh,
of course.
Was I making a
Of
goofy face?
course. Yeah, when I didn't know what to expect either, so I'm like, what's gonna, because you just don't know where things are gonna go with these stories. You just have no idea where things, what's gonna happen. So I'm like just on the edge of my seat the whole time with my mouth hanging open like like an idiot. So anything else? Did you guys want to talk about with that story? That was a good intro, I think.
Yeah.
Like set us up for the gore.
Creepy like that.
Well, we got a little bit of everything, right? We'll start with the gore. Let's see where else it goes.
I don't think mine is like as detailed, but it's definitely not pleasant subject matter. So yeah, this is fun. Dark fun, but that's what we're doing here. So if you're watching and you're enjoying yourself, if you know Nikki or If you know the author, John Myers, I hope you enjoyed this. Please share this. He's got a website link to a group that is down in the description. Also, if you want to learn more about him, his work, and connect with him in real life, there's a writers group.
Yeah, if you do that, let him know that you heard of him through the Moonlit Magic Live.
Yeah. Nikki. Mention Nikki specifically because I don't think he'd know anything about the rest of us, but she knows him. So yeah, if you watch this and you know him or you want to check out his work, make sure you go and click on that, connect with him. And if you're enjoying yourself here, we do this every month now, I guess. So we just decided a couple months ago that we come on here and hang out because we're isolated and bored and we want to hang out with our friends. So you're welcome to come and hang out with us. we want you to be here live with us so you can get your oracle card for humanity reading. We do that every month too. And so subscribe so you don't miss that. And then you can always catch the replays. We talk about all kinds of different stuff, right? Every month, something different and new. So you might like this, or you might like something else we talked about in the past, or you might even want to join the group and join us live someday, right?
Right. Yay. Let us know what you want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to know what you want to talk about. We want like people who know what they're talking about. When we have certain topics, I want people who are like experts or have different perspectives and experiences than I do. So I'm not speaking, on behalf of others, especially we don't want to just be coming from like this like white lady perspective all the time. We have a lot of friends that are of many different cultures and backgrounds. We want people who are qualified with the experience and understanding of certain things to be speaking on behalf of those subjects. Am I making sense? Because I don't want to speak on behalf of others who have a perspective that's more relevant and a voice that needs to be heard on certain things. So as we move forward, subscribe and just let us know what you want to talk about. Not trying to get too serious. It's a spooky one. Sorry.
Stop talking. Let Sierra tell her story.
Sorry, yeah. Sierra, it's your turn. Tell your story. Sierra has got, hold on, let me get it. Sierra has got her family story. I'm even more excited now that this has creeped you out your whole life. I'm even more excited to hear about it.
All right, so a little bit of background on how this story came to be. We went camping, my stepdad, my mom, my brother, and I, down by like Traverse City area, Traverse City, Michigan, if you're not from Michigan. And I was probably about like 7 or 8, and my brother was 5 or 6, give or take a couple years. And our campsite was sort of close to this river that was nearby, so my brother and I had free range just to walk to the river and back whenever we wanted. And one morning we were eating our cereal and we're like, yeah, let's go sit down by the river and eat our cereal and then we'll play. On our way to the river, we found this hollowed out tree and we were checking it out because it's super cool. And we found a cat in the tree and it was kind of like all dirty and ratted up and it wouldn't let us touch it. So we gave it our milk from our cereal and then went and told our parents about it. So they got a hold of the camp manager and they got a hold of the DNR, and the DNR came and took the cat and brought it to a shelter. So later that night, it started to rain and we couldn't sit around the campfire. So we all got into the tent and my stepdad's like, let's pass the time telling scary stories. And he went first. So he's there with his little flashlight telling us this spooky story. And it has to do with the cat. So this is the story. There was this old couple that traveled the country camping, and they brought along their cat with them. And they basically just lived off the land. They'd park their camper somewhere, go fishing and hunting. going to the stores in areas for their necessities and stuff. But the husband did a lot of fishing and hunting. The wife did gathering and picking berries and stuff with their kitty. One day, the husband and her went to this campsite and he decided he was going to go fishing. But all of a sudden, the current and the slippery rocks caused him to get swept down the river. And the wife is searching for him endlessly, just went down the river onto the other side of the bank looking for him until she came across his dead body in the river. And on her way back to go find the camp manager, she gets stuck in this mud, which there is actually mud by the river. My brother and I walked through it and lost one of our shoes and had to dig it out. So it just added to like this realistic explanation he was giving to us for this story. And she was stuck in the mud, and then she was screaming for help, and that attracted wolves, and they ended up eating her. And the camp manager ended up coming across both of their bodies, and the cat just escaped from the camper because it was so hungry and ended up in the tree.
And then you
So-
found the cat?
What was that?
And then you found the cat?
Yeah. And then we ended up finding the cat later on. So we're sitting in the tent and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is probably like a haunted campsite and they're gonna like come back for their cat and they're gonna be like, where's our cat? And haunt us for the rest of our lives. So all night I was laying in my sleeping bag thinking every little sound was the ghosts of this old man and this woman looking for their cat.
Yeah. That would,
Yeah.
especially as a kid, that would be so scary.
Yeah, it was very scary for being like 7 years old. It just like sticks.
You guys are sleeping outside, like camping, like in a tent?
Yeah, in the tent.
Can you hear this?
Hear what?
Can you hear? You can't hear this? It literally sounds like, I don't know, like, like the grand finale of fireworks?
Oh, I hear that here. Do you hear it from mine?
I don't hear
Oh, I
it.
hear it outside my house.
It's outside my house.
Okay, so we're being attacked. Like, just
Okay.
unilaterally.
We don't even live in the same
Or
state.
all simultaneously, unilaterally, sorry. It's just been going on the whole time Sierra was talking. It's just like boom, 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 boom the
Same.
entire time.
The same, but it's outside my house too, and we don't even live in the same state.
I don't think I have anything going on at my house.
It like it's just been constant for like the last, I don't know, ever since Sierra started talking. It's just really strange. Never heard it before. But it's like, it reminds me of fireworks, but like just boom, 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 like firecrackers going off constant. Really wild.
Yeah, it's actually the old man and woman.
Oh,
Spooky season. Ooh, it's the old man and woman coming for the cat. It's not here.
Well, you never know.
Somebody from one of our haunted stories. So that was, yeah, I like that, especially because as a kid, you just don't have any frame. But being outdoors, like anything's bound to freak you out with especially with like an adult telling you it's real. It's like my dad used to love to do that to me when I was a kid too. So we're actually coming like to our final story. So hopefully wrapping up pretty quick. And right after that is going to be our very favorite part, which is Oracle Cards for Humanity. And so now is the time that if you do want one of those readings from now until, we get to that point, like this video and then drop like a little, what is it, crystal ball or something in the comments.
just any emoji you could find to work.
Yeah. And So if you do that, then Sierra will put you on the list. And if you don't do that, then we won't. And we'll just have all the fun ourselves. And so there. But that's coming up right after our final story, which is mine. So don't go to bed yet. Yeah, and like, if you're enjoying yourself, invite your friends. I invite all my friends. Most of them don't come. And that's like not the first time that's happened to me. So here I am. Not the first time. Nobody showed up to my parties, guys. We're all the party I need. So everybody else is just a bonus. What else? Okay, so I already said all that stuff. I'm looking at this and I'm like, nope, I already said all that. Oh, and then one thing before we hop into the very last story, before I forget about it, I wanted to share about the calendar. The reason you're not here, if you're not here, is because you don't have this calendar, period. It's the only reason why you're not here. It's because you don't have the calendar. So here is our new, we never had a calendar before. So our new and only ever calendar so far. And it's just the 2021, the last couple months of the year, just to, kind of get us going. And so we can start getting used to using kind of an at a glance moon calendar situation. But we do have one coming out for 2022 as well. So there's a link down below, and go and download this. There's desktop calendars, and then you can like print them too if you want.
Yeah. And what's cool about it is you can use it as just a glance of the moon cycles. So, when the moon phases are changing. But if you look, you can also see like the bigger moons, the new moon and full moon. That's what most people pay attention to. But you'll also see where it says live. So you'll know what day that month we're going live. So you can come hang out with us.
This is now. See us? This is us right now, live. Here we are. Hey. So just decoding this as we go. Look at us workshopping. Yeah. Each page too says right here, this is where we're at. Aries full moon campfire stories live, 15th at 10. If you're not here, you better get your calendar so you can remember to show up for November, right?
Yeah.
The 19th.
And then also with this moon cycle thing, the little QR code brings you to meditations every day. So this, you can look at it and see where you are, and then kind of like help boost yourself, through the month, whatever way you want to use it, whether you want to join us or just like, use it to keep track of where the moon is, what the moon's up to, whatever. We don't care. Just come and use this moon. Come and use this calendar. It's cool. So let me get that off my screen and stop rambling about that. Hold on. Oop, I did it. All right. So this is my story, guys. It was very hard for me. I think I mentioned this at the beginning, to choose a story because I had no idea what I wanted to talk about. I read a lot of different other people's suggestions. I didn't want to like ruin my life by like getting too involved in a story that literally scared me to death. So I kind of like had to figure out what I was into. And this in particular for me, I felt connected to the concept of around this time of year, honoring the energy and the craft, that goes before us, whether or not we identify as witches or whatever we call ourselves. We're all we're doing a certain type of magic, and it's unique magic. We're here placing intentions and doing rituals. And so a lot of people before us paved the way for us to be here so we could do this out in the open and talk about it. And depending on whose story you heard, you might have a different perspective of what the word witch means or what a witch is. So I'm going to share a familiar story. I'm not going to tell you what it is right away. And I'm going to share the classic version that we've probably all heard, but then I'm going to share the origins of it, because the truth of it is actually a lot more terrifying than the fairy tale. And then to finish up, another version of the same fairy tale just to kind of anchor in that point that it all depends on who you're listening to. So be careful whose version you're believing. So this story was written as a fairy tale by the Grimm brothers in 1812. And it's a story of two poor children of a woodcutter. And in Europe in 1314, a great famine struck. And the stepmother of these children decided that in order for her and her husband not to starve, that the children needed to be sacrificed, which was, I didn't realize about the story that this is why the kids were in the woods in the first place, but this is why the kids were in the woods. Okay, so the kids, can you guess what story it is? Bonus points if you guess what story it is.
Put it in the comments.
What?
Put it in the comments.
Yes,
What story?
Well, I still got Sierra's up here. I'm ruining everything. Guys, I suck. Well, I'm gonna put mine up. All right. So now I revealed what it is. So these kids overhear the story or the plan of their stepmother the night before, and Hansel sneaks out and gathers some pebbles so he and his sister can find their way home from, when their stepmother, takes them out and tries to trick them with her evil plan. So the next day, the whole family walks out deep into the woods, and Hansel places his pebbles. And pretty soon, the kids are kind of out there deep in the woods, and they realize that their parents have abandoned them. But they use those pebbles, and they find their way back home. And when they get there, their father is full of regret. He brings them back in. And for a little while, things go on that way where they're starving. But as the famine continues to get worse, the stepmother insists that they take the kids back into the forest and leave them to fend for themselves. And this is pretty common of this time for this particular situation, but I'm going to explain that afterwards. So this time, since they had found their way home last time, she locks them in their room overnight so they can't get out and devise any way of finding their way back home. But Hansel he grabs a little thing of bread, and he's able to leave breadcrumbs on his way to try to find his way back home. But unfortunately, breadcrumbs are food, and the birds eat them, and they're gone. So the kids search for a very long time, and then they come upon a house that's made of gingerbread cake and sugary frosting and whatever, yummy treats a kid would like to enjoy, especially hungry ones. So while they're eating, this haggardly woman comes out, but is very nice and invites them inside, offers them a meal, and pretends to be kind. And so after she feeds them, lures them in, she traps them and keeps them there, but keeps feeding them these sweets to fatten them up. And then one day, the murderous witch, of course, decides her meal is ready. She takes the little girl, Gretel, lights the oven because it's time to prepare her brother for eating, which is really dark. Like, remember hearing this as a child, not really asking too many questions about it. That's pretty dark. But after a while, Gretel realizes, she knows what's going on. Like, it's go time. She needs to figure something out because the witch is trying to get her to step into the oven to check the temperature. So Gretel plays dumb. The witch gets really angry and goes to demonstrate, which is when Gretel pushes the witch into the oven, slams the door shut, and lets the ungodly creature to be burned to ashes. So after that, Gretel frees Hansel, and apparently this witch had a bunch of treasure. And they gathered it all up, and they head home. And their dad is there filled with grief. Their stepmother had passed away because she's a monster. And he accepts them back in, with open arms, and they live happily ever after with the witch's wealth. Okay. But the families of this famine in Europe in the 1300s did not live happily ever after. The results for them were a little more devastating because they didn't have any of these magic riches to, get them through. They had much more devastating results in which over 30 million people actually starved to death, which was about more than 25% of like certain populations in certain areas. The process was even worse for elderly people who chose to voluntarily starve to death to allow the young to live. Other families committed infanticide or abandoned their children altogether and let them fend for themselves. It's believed that mothers were fed to their children and that mothers ate their own children during a famine this extreme. So it's a lot darker than, you think about this, I don't know, like concept of these kids stumbled upon this witch and she's this lone, scary figure. This was like what was happening of the time. And it said that people were so destroyed by hunger that they extracted bodies of the dead from cemeteries, removed the flesh from skulls, and ate it when women ate their own children. This chaos resulted in the origin tale of Hansel and Gretel. So, according to the Grimm brothers, when times are tough, witches live in gingerbread houses, lure children with baked goods to fatten them up for the slaughter. But there's another story written in the 1960s that frames this tale another way. It's about a woman who lived in Germany in the early 1600s and who was legendary for her gingerbread cookies. She started off by baking them for church events, but everybody loved them so much that she started to sell them at fairs and markets. And it was at one of those fairs that Katharina caught the attention of Hans, a rival baker who was envious of her profitable business. At first, he tried to pursue Katarina's affections in order to steal her recipe, but she turned him down when she discovered his true motive. Wanting to escape Hans's determined harassment, she moved away, taking her baking business with her. And she continued to be prosperous and gain recognition. But unfortunately, this enraged Hans, who formally accused her of being a witch in a court, hoping to gain access to her confiscated property, including a particular recipe. Katarina was arrested and tortured, ultimately released because there was no evidence. And the court let her go and they released her back into her home in the woods to live in peace. But then, in an awful twist, Hans and his sister Gretel broke into her house, murdered her, and burned her in her own baking oven. While Hans and Gretel did get arrested, they were eventually set free. Hans lived the rest of his life as a prosperous and influential citizen with a very familiar but not quite perfect gingerbread recipe. And when the story was retold, they became the innocent children, while Katarina became the monstrous witch of our nightmares. And that's my story.
Whoa. I have never heard that.
Yeah, I've never heard the second one. And that was so, I don't know. The beginning is so depressing and sad, talking about how many people died and like the horrible choices they had to make to eat their children or send them to their deaths or be eaten by their children. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, horrible. Truth is worse than fiction, right? Because it's this story, but really framed. I remember the story. I remember the gingerbread house and the witch. I remember that part. I didn't know why the kids, I thought they were like wandered off for the day. Like I didn't realize the story was literally like
I
that.
don't remember that.
But I think it's the watered down version probably weren't told that part or that version as kids.
Yeah. So honestly, I always connected the game Candyland with that story, which is totally like fun and cute, and the story is not.
I mean, I found it really interesting. They say that part, the end part, isn't true, because I had read like what's the true story of Hansel and Gretel, and apparently this person like made this up, but it was so convincing that people believed it was real. So it's actually
real. Yeah.
But I love the frame of it because one, there's based in fact in a certain way, and these horrible, like terrible real life choices, but then two different versions of the same sort of story and what someone's reputation is, or what it, based on the word of someone else, what your frame of like a witch or anything could be. I just found that really interesting. Just based on your beliefs, how you might look at someone.
Yeah.
On a label, and that just was really interesting to me. So to honor, the ones who burned before us so we could be here and be weird and out, out in public. We get to be weirdos and witches and whatever the fuck we want to be, because other people literally,
Mm-hmm.
they suffered, and I, again, don't want to get like dark, like that dark about it, but thank you. Thank you. Just like to past, present, and future, because it's cool that we can be here. It just is. It's just cool that we have all this opportunity to be here and connect and do these things that, even though we're, I don't know, none of us are in the same town. So that's cool as hell.
Yeah. But we do have the same fireworks apparently going on.
Whatever that was about. I'm sorry. I'm like, is it like, I was like, something's going down. Like it was weird. I've never heard, and then it's gone. I didn't even notice it was gone. I'm just glad it is.
Yeah, no, I heard the finale here, and then that was it.
Weird, hey? Okay, well, anyway, we're finishing. We're done. Bye. I don't think we really had any comments. So, I mean, it is what it is. We're going to do ours. Do we have any comments? Oh, we have one. What is that? Was that you? We have one comment. Does somebody want a reading?
What does it say? I don't know. I don't see it.
So I did comment at one point, and then I realized that I'm signed on to.
Oh yeah, that's what. So it was you. So it's us. So let's just do our oracle cards. It's a quiet night, and that's cool. But let's do our oracle cards for humanity readings, because we're gonna do them for us. Okay. And let's do one. You know what? We're gonna do one for Kid too, because she couldn't be here.
Okay.
We'll do hers too, and I'll just let her know. Be like, we just drew you a message. So it's a quiet night, and that's cool. We did this early because we want to just like keep resharing it, because it's kind of, I don't know, why not? Kind of our interesting versions of stories. Let's do Sierra first.
All right.
Sierra, what are you hoping for? What kind of message are you hoping for? I'm kind of excited. I forgot we were doing this. I'm excited for mine.
Oh yeah, you were like, okay, we're done. I was like, wait.
Well, no, I didn't really mean that, but I meant like, like we're wrapping up, because I had written this thing about, now we're wrapping things up, but it wasn't in my line of sight. So I'm like, all right, that's it, done. Slam my computer shut and be finished. Yeah, so we're super grateful that whether you're here live or watching, later on, especially sharing this, subscribing, but connecting with us in our different like social media spaces, here on YouTube, on Facebook, or in this Facebook group especially. And Nikki just got the Instagram going, just because when we do that, we get to know you. What do you want to talk about? Maybe you want to join us, at some point. We do this every month, and maybe you will just enjoy it as much as we do. So that's it. The calendars just help you keep track, and you'll know what we're up to. We're doing different rituals all the time. So you ready for Sierra?
All right.
Are
you ready, Sierra?
I'm ready for this.
Oh, it jumped. It's a jumper. I got a
You should
jumper.
comment on
Okay.
the replay what you think of our costumes and let us know what.
Oh yeah, and vote on the stories. What, not even vote on the stories, but which story was your favorite and what did you like best? Did anything surprise you, or whatever.
Or what story would you have
We didn't
chosen?
have as many costumes on here as, because I feel like me and Nikki have like one costume and your partner didn't show up because you had a baby.
Yeah.
Another part of your costume.
Baby. Yeah. Tonight, but
Yeah, and so like our costume contest kind of got thrown off a little bit because Nikki and I are kind of like a couple's costume. Wayne and Garth go together, and then you're.
Do you think anyone knows who that is?
I don't
Like,
know.
there's
Do you guys
no-
know? Do you guys know Wayne's World? If you do, you're our people. Are you as old as us?
comment some drumsticks or glasses if you know what Wayne's World is.
Woo! Yeah. Okay, so Sierra's card.
Sarah's card says, "What never fails to liven up the party?"
It says up and out.
Oh,
I think that means just getting up and leaving.
I mean, that definitely livens it up for me.
Sounds like my
home
vibe.
with my dad. I can get behind that one. Yeah.
To heal the parts of me that feel hurt, I must feel every emotion. It has to come up to come out. I don't try to push my feelings away. I sit with them and feel them as I release them. So that livens up the party. Emotional release.
yes.
Yeah.
Woohoo. Okay, let's do I don't know, whatever.
No, let's do
Whose
kids.
is it? Whose turn?
Well, we were supposed to do a kid first anyway.
We did, but she's not here. So that's why I didn't do her first this time.
I know. So, do you want to do hers?
Yeah, just do it. Yeah, do it. Let's do kids.
Hers is
Hold on. Kid is the person that was supposed to be here with us. And you're probably not here paying attention to this anyway if you're not her. So whatever. Probably not here. Go ahead.
What are my parents hiding from me? I think we got this one last time too.
Hold on. I didn't have one come out for her yet. What are my parents hiding from me? Guidance system. That sounds relevant because my parents didn't teach me that either. I love using my emotions as a guidance system. They show me how close or far away I am from what I want. When I'm feeling joy and doing the things I love, I am in a state of allowing for my desires. I notice when I am feeling low vibrational thoughts and shift them to release resistance. I think she'd probably agree that her parents didn't teach her how to use her. I think we could all agree, just as a generation, that our parents, I know my parents did their best, but some things I had to learn on my own about these emotions.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. All right, Nikki, let's do you.
What do I get? What did I bring back from Mexico?
From Mexico?
I've never been to Mexico.
And it's going to be a real surprise. I had two come out. I got to hold on. Okay. We brought back spells, spell casting, talking about witches. The words I speak when the stories I tell are like spells. This is one of my favorite cards. When I say, or what I say and believe, I attract more of. So I shift my story from lack to abundance, from victim to empowered, and from complaint to gratitude. Now when I speak to others through my words, I am casting beautiful spells. So
Straight from Mexico.
Straight from Mexico. We've gotten that one before, but it's one of my favorites. Straight from Mexico. And mine. And then I'm slamming this computer shut.
I feel like I need to get a bonus pack because I think we got this one before too. What will I bring back in time to convince people that I am a powerful wizard?
Oh, well, that's just no-brainer. Love. Expressing love. It says, today I notice the things I appreciate about the people in my life. Aw, you guys. I take a moment to send them my love and to wish them well. My love is infinite and it feels great to express it. Oh, that's perfect to wrap this up. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being here live and on the replay. Thank you for voting. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for everything. Love you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here. Share this with your friends. Let us know what story was your favorite. And goodbye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.